I'm Adam Reese. This is You're at Grit Gym, and we're about to go over five pieces that you need to avoid to make sure that you're saving your shoulder for everything that it needs to do in the weight room, so you can work out the way that you need to in order to push out into your life the way that you want to. And like my story with my shoulder is that I've torn this thing up multiple times. I played 3 sports in college. I was a pitcher in baseball. I played football, and then I wrestled for a year. So my shoulder took a lot of mileage. Okay, in that time, back in 2000 was when I first injured it. Dislocation, cracked the growth plate, and then I separated. I had 2 third-degree shoulder separations, and then wear and tear, and just beating my body into submission all the time through lifting. Tore it up and tore it up and tore it up, and I just kept on saying, I got to work out, so I got to keep doing my things to progress, but it wasn't making any progress because the shoulder was always in pain, right? Your body is always going to win. It's only got a few billion years of evolution on you. It's going to win. And there are some things that we can do with the shoulder to make sure that it doesn't start to break down, and that's what we're going to get into today. So please, if you're watching this later, do hashtag team replay below. If you're watching it live, please post in the comments section. Let us know that you're there. What's the word we should use for that? Team live versus team replay. But your shoulder is an interesting joint. It's kind of just floating out here. You've got this arm that just can kind of move everywhere and just kind of floats. Now this upper arm bone sits in connection with your shoulder blade, and it rotates in there, and it needs a certain amount of space, but it needs stability. So it's got all of this room to roam around. So we got to give it the stability to be able to hold in position and have the movement pattern, and then to pattern out how we want it to move so that it doesn't continue getting injured. So what is one thing that you can do? One thing that you can do is you can avoid upright rows. Upright rows are when you would take a bar and you would hold it down here, and then you would come up like that. Okay, if I'm going to analyze what's going on at the shoulder, and this is like impingement 101. Okay, this is, if you have any coach, any chiropractor, physical therapist, anything, and they have you do an upright row, you walk immediately. Personal trainer, strength coach, anybody. They have you do an upright row, you walk. This is just one of the very few exercises that is just a level of insanity. But we're going to hold the bar, come up like that. Look at the position that I'm in. I'm in an internally rotated position. I'm going to put the bar down. I'm not demonstrate this until my shoulder starts hurting. Okay. In this position, this is the most vulnerable position that you can be. The shoulder is internally rotated, and we're adding weight to that internal rotation, okay? And it's just no good. We can do other things to work that mid-low upper trap than to go into this like kind of cranky position that our shoulder is going to become. So upright rows are out, okay? The other thing is, we talked about the low collarbone in other videos before. If the collarbone, hit my mic there. If the collarbone is, hey Tori, if the collarbone is hanging out really low, real down here, like that, parallel to the floor, we want about a 20 to 30 degree upward slope. Okay, if it doesn't have that, then we don't get to do deadlifts, farmer's walks, where we're just walking with a set of kettlebells or heavy weights. We don't get to do deadlifts that are further into. We also don't get to do bench press that would drop us down. We don't get to do chin-ups and pull-ups because it's going to further perpetuate that problem, all right? So if your upper trap is really, really stiff, this is one of the ways to example of this. If your upper trap is very, very stiff, then you don't need to stretch your upper trap. You actually need to stretch these to alleviate some of that tension. This is the last thing holding you up, okay? The shoulder is just hanging a little bit too low. All right, also, the next thing is, number 3, if you have limited shoulder flexion, the rib can't stay down while you bring your arm up overhead and you end up doing this with your arms, well, then you don't get to do overhead pressing and you don't get to do chin-ups or pull-ups because our arm can't actually get here. This is something that you see in certain demographics, populations, other gyms, where they let people do this chin-up thing where they're throwing their back out and they're getting here and their shoulder is basically doing this the entire time, and it's grinding away at that rotator cuff and inside the shoulder. You do not want that. So it's completely possible that if your shoulder is hanging low and you don't have enough shoulder flexion, that you shouldn't be doing chin-ups, and every time that you do a chin-up, it's just beating the hell out of the shoulder. Also, you want a very strong rotator cuff if you are going to be doing chin-ups, because this is a big muscle down here. Like, not just my muscle, I mean all of us. Like, I'm not saying I have big muscles, but your lat muscle is a lot bigger than your rotator cuff muscle, a lot stronger than your rotator cuff muscles. It's going to win, okay? It's going to be like a meat grinder to that shoulder blade, or to that rotator cuff, because it's going to pull down and in, right? And everything else has to go the opposite direction. It's going to be internally rotated. So with limited shoulder flexion, No overhead pressing, because you can't get your arms up, you're going to crank on your low back. No chin-ups and pull-ups. Okay, the other thing is, if you have limited thoracic mobility, so you don't rotate well, you don't flex well, or you don't extend well, any one of those four, I almost said three, any one of those three would be rotation, flexion, extension, then you don't get to do bench press. Okay? The bench press requires a certain amount of internal rotation to come down to your chest. Okay? And we're just not going to get that internal rotation if we have restriction in thoracic mobility. So you can test that real easy. If you're stiff and restricted this way, you're stiff and restricted this way, you feel a big stretch this way, and you feel a big stretch that way, well, you probably have a restricted thoracic spine, because almost everybody does. It's like asking people if they walk with shoes on. I've done thousands of assessments over the years. I've been doing this for 12 years, helping people out with their body so that they can be in better shape. And by the way, if you are curious about this stuff, you want to find out about your shoulder, your spine, your hip, your ankles, the way that you move, the patterning that your body uses, and how to improve upon that so that you can get rid of energy leaks, and so that you can put your energy to where you need it to go in your life to be better at that thing, sign up for a program design session. It's gritgym.com/PDS, and we'll get very, very clear with you on yours. It's a one-on-one session with me where we do the assessment, and I build you a program at the end that you can then use to be able to work out in a way so that you don't feel pain all the time, so you can be consistent with your training, so that you can actually make progress without feeling like shit, without feeling like crap. So limited thoracic mobility, you don't get to bench press because you're probably not going to have that internal rotation that's there. There are anomalies, but they are rare. Okay, last one. Never go beyond your range of motion. Okay, a lot of people when they're stretching, they're going beyond their range of motion. They're cranking on their shoulder against the wall like this, and that shoulder ends up popping out like that, and they're basically pushing themselves towards a dislocation. Okay, this is not a position that you want advantageous position for you to stretch in. Okay, maybe if you got here and really pressed up and away, we could get a little bit of that, but never go beyond your range of motion. Okay, you see this with people that are really trying to get that last repetition of a muscle up is where I see it a lot of time, where they're coming up and over the top. We don't do muscle ups at Grit Gym, but they're coming up and over the top, and they actually end up dislocating their shoulder slightly to be able to pull off the muscle up. That's silly. Do not do that. Okay, so we've got one. Don't be doing upright rows. This is like impingement 101. It causes shoulder impingement. Okay, you do not want to be using these in your workouts. Do not do upright rows. Do not do them. Okay, the other one, if you have a really low collarbone and you have a really tense upper trap, and you're putting a lot of pressure on your scalene, sternocleidomastoid, subclavius. Well, referred pain from subclavius, scalene, and sternocleidomastoid is down the back of the arm and in the front of the shoulder. Okay, a lot of people have shoulder pain in the front of the shoulder. All right, this can be one of the big reasons. Okay, so if that shoulder is hanging low, we don't want to put more stuff that's going to depress that shoulder down. We want to actually get the arms up overhead with a landmine press, with a wall slide, with a Turkish get up, with a windmill, with something like that that gets their arms up in that better advantageous position where the serratus anterior is kicking on, upwardly rotating, elevating, and posteriorly tilting that shoulder so that you have a better, healthier shoulder. And you still get all the benefits from those exercises with those things. Okay, so low collarbone, you don't get to do bench, pull-ups, chin-ups, deadlifts, or farmer's walks. Okay, limited shoulder flexion. If you can't get your arms up overhead, this is number 3, can't get your arms up overhead, you don't get to do overhead press or chin-ups. It's just how it goes. You probably want to be working towards being able to do those, but it's not going to happen. Number 4 is limited thoracic mobility. You don't get to do bench press. Okay, like nothing wrong with bench press. It's just not advantageous to do with a person that has thoracic extension, rotation, or flexion issues, which you probably do because almost all of us do. So I'm not trying to say that bench press is bad or it's not useful or we don't use it here. If you look behind me, there's multiple, there's a bench press setup right there. There's nothing wrong with this. There's a lot of people that fit into this mold, but if you have a shoulder issue, you probably don't need to be bench pressing. We probably need to work other exercises to get you back to where you can do certain things like bench press. And number 5, I almost messed up there. Number 5 is to never go beyond your range of motion. I see this all the time. Do not go beyond your range of motion. Stay within your range of motion if you are stretching, and that's even if you need to stretch. Most people do not need to stretch their shoulder. They need to stretch things around their shoulder to be able to, so that the shoulder can do what it needs to do. So the shoulder blade, maybe we need to move that sucker around. Thoracic spine, maybe we need to move that around. Very rarely do we need to stretch the shoulder. We need to stabilize the shoulder. So those are 5 things that you can do to, or that you can avoid so that you don't bang up on your shoulder, make sure to use these, okay? Like some of the reason that we started doing all the social media stuff was because we're only getting this information out to the people inside of Grit Gym, and more people need to know about this stuff. And if you're curious about what your body and your circumstance looks like, sign up for a program design session. It'll be well worth every dollar that you spend on it. It's a money back, 100% money back guarantee. If you come out here or we get on Skype and you don't think that it was worth the money that you spent for it, you get to keep the program, and like, I do not care. I want you to be happy with what you got. And I would much rather spread the message and get nothing than not have affected or influenced anyone. So definitely sign up for a program design session. It's gritgym.com/PDS, and we'll hop on a Skype call, or you come out here and we'll meet, and then we will figure out what's going on with you, your history. Then we'll do the assessment to figure out where you are right now. We'll figure out where you want to go so we can make the plan to get there. Then I'll write up a program specific to you, and you get to walk out of here with that. So anyway, gritgym.com/PDS. Hope to see you out here soon.